Good morning.
Good
I am
morning.
so thankful for all of you guys coming on. We're going to try to let some people get into the room and get some viewership up. I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves. And then I'm going to tell kind of like how I met you two. But I want to start with you, Dr. Faith. Dr. Faith is my beautiful pastor. And so I'm so thankful that she's on with me today. And I was listening to something she said. It's been a while back, and you were like in 1998, you had a dream and you had like a vision and a purpose. And I was thinking in 1990, I literally had zero plans for my life. And so I was so impressed by your dream and your purpose in 1998 that I'm like, oh, okay. So we see she's been moving and shaking since 98 out here. That's amazing. And then Maya, I met Maya here in Rochester, and Maya just really impressed me because she started a business. She's been in business maybe since 2020. She'll get to tell you when she introduces herself, and I'm just impressed by the way she moves, works, and what she does. And she's a mom with 2 kids, so I think that's beautiful. And then me and Favor met through Dr. Faith. And then we kind of been following each other on Facebook, and I've just seen she's just special. And so I love that. So Dr. Faith, go ahead and introduce yourself to us.
Yep. Yes, so I'm Faith WOKOMA, and I am first a daughter. Absolutely love the Lord. Came to the Lord at early age, and I am a wife. I've been married for almost 12 years now to an amazing husband, who we co-pastor together. We do business together. We're literally together every single day, except when we're traveling. And then I have 2 wonderful children, Josiah and Fabia. They are 10 and 8. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful to just be living a life of purpose where I get to help develop people in their assignments and help them to walk in sonship.
I love that. Maya, introduce yourself to us.
Yes, good morning. My name is Maya Crane. I get to be Jeremy Crane's wife, and we've been married for 13 years, 14 this year. I am the mom to James and Reese. James is 12, Reese is 9, and I love to be able to help people understand their purpose, not find it, but truly understand what it is, while also doing no harm to the work that they're trying to do or the work that they've been called to do.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay, Favor, introduce yourself. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, because I try to mute so you don't have to hear all the
baby.
Mom chat. Baby.
She's crying and knocking on the room door. I'm Favor Robinson, married to the Corey Robinson. I have a daughter who is 1-year-old. Shiloh just turned 1 2 weeks ago. Corey and I have been married for almost 2 years, so I'm nowhere near Maya and Dr. Faith. We're climbing up, right? We're climbing up. So my husband and I have the opportunity to do ministry together. Sometimes we travel together, sometimes we don't. I'm specifically called to coach and mentor women, right? Dr. Pitt actually helped me to understand that because I wanted to mentor everybody. And then I realized every time I put my voice out there, only women will respond. And I became very okay with it. So I teach people how to live a life of faith and favor.
I love
Mhm.
that. And your name is Favor, right?
Yeah.
So faith and favor. I love that. I love that. Good morning, guys. My name is Jennifer Bibb, and I am married to Timothy Bibb. He produces this show. You guys, all I do is come downstairs. That's it. I come
That's a blessing.
downstairs. He puts it all together. So I always want to make sure I shout him out for that because I'm just so thankful that he puts in the work for me not to have to worry about any of the technical things around here. Because if it was me, I'd be on my, I don't know. It just wouldn't work out well if it was me trying to do it. We've been married almost 22 years. We have 3 children, Timothy, London, and Judah. And Timothy finished his first year of college, so now he's home, and we're just so happy to be back together, Big Five. And I love that. This mom chat today is really about boss moms. And I invited you guys all here because you are boss moms in my eyes and really into the eyes of the people that are watching too. Dr. Faith, I know you're out here moving and shaking with 25,000 whatever people on your live for your DTA right now. Favor, I know that you have a girls program. And Maya, you have a full strategy business and you're out here in Rochester moving and shaking. And I love that. But what more, I love that you guys are moms. I love that you're wives. I love that you pour into your children and families. And I just kind of want to talk about some of the challenges with that.
Yeah.
So we're going to go right in. I want to know what's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur and having a family. So Dr. Faith, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking the hardest part is thinking, man, I left my door open. My daughter's downstairs. I don't know if she's going to bust in while we're in the middle of this discussion, you know? So, I mean, I think the hardest part is wanting to make sure that you're present with your children and you're emotionally providing while you're accomplishing purpose or creating money. And so for me, that's always been the biggest thing, but it was also the driver as to why I decided to work for myself and start business because I wanted to be a work from home mom. I don't think I could be a stay-at-home mom. I would go cuckoo, right? But I wanted to be able to still be able to be a contributor to my family, but be present with my children. But I think the biggest thing, even as they're growing, is the challenge of making sure we're balancing it all between ministry and business and the children.
Yeah. Maya, what about you?
Yeah, I echo a lot of that. You know, I think the hardest part is running a business and having children. Like that is the hardest part of it, and being able to find that balance. I think the older they get, the more they need, the more that is going on. We're also trying to do in my family conscious parenting to where it's not this whole thought of do as I say. We want to be able to model healthy work-life balance, also understanding what God has told us we're supposed to do, right? So Christ, family, and then the business. So making sure that one doesn't come before the other. You know, this morning, same thing, kind of what Dr. Faith was saying. You know, my son woke up, he wanted to be on his Nintendo Switch, these things, and giving grace for that, but also, you know, just being graceful in this season of entrepreneurship and motherhood.
And I think I love that because as we know, before you guys got on, Judah had already cut off the internet. We started the morning with it's like, oh, okay. So we're doing that today. And then
why is he cutting off the internet? Did he feel like it needed like a restart or something?
I don't know. He unplugged it, let the dog out. They're up there running around. I'm like, oh God, not when Dr. Faith is on. Like, get it together, Judah. So that was, you know, that's how we started. Just trying to balance out your kids and family. It's just what comes along with it. It's just one of those things. It just is what it is. Favor, you got a new baby, and I know you're trying to quiet her in the back. I'm like, nah, she's a welcome. Tell her to come on in.
Yep. For me, it was adjusting, right? I'm being gracious. I think I'm the hardest on myself. Like everybody gets this 10,000 doses of grace that I give them. But when it comes to me, I'm just extremely hard because I felt like I got all the blessings at the same time and I didn't know what to do with it. I moved from being single. I mean, 2020, the business started thriving. And then I met my husband and then I got married and had a kid and then moved. And so like literally my whole life changed. And I was like, I don't know what to do with myself because I knew just this favor in New York that had a job before a business, was very comfortable. Now, I didn't know with the blessings come a lot of adjustment, right? I like change, but I hate it at the same time.
Yeah, and you just went through a lot of change. Like having a marriage and then having a baby in a 2-year span, like that's a lot. So definitely give yourself a lot of grace for that. And even it's unique because I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years. And so I stayed at home with my kids. Now I was a full-time student. And then because sometimes being a stay-at-home mom, you just don't get, people just don't give you the grace. Like, well, what you doing? And it's like, I'm
working all day.
You know, like, and so, but I say all that to say, I went to school full time. I was a crisis pregnancy counselor. I was doing all these things. And ultimately, when I started working, I feel like my kids have a very different mom. And so it's really a balance that is different from when I stayed home. So I can understand all of us just trying to make this balance where our children and our husbands feel like we're not putting them on the back burner. And so I'm curious too, like one of the things that I think women get the short end of the stick is we are not allowed sometimes to be boss mom without feeling like, well, you're not giving it all to your family, or you're not doing the right thing by your children, or, you know, especially, I don't know if you feel like this, Dr. Faith, but in ministry, I feel like I was like raised in ministry, like you serve your husband and your kid. You don't have any other purpose. I thought I did. I really thought I did.
It's a big thing, and it's a thing that I try to encourage women in a lot of times, because you had a calling before you had a husband. You had an assignment before you had children. And while it is a little bit difficult, especially in those first 3 years, to adjust and fit it all in, it doesn't mean your destiny has to die because you got married. As a matter of fact, it should be magnified. You should have a helpmate now who can help you prioritize and schedule and all of that. So I am really fortunate. I call myself a spiritual mutt. So I grew up in kind of different spiritual environments. And, you know, people always ask me, like, how did you stay focused for so long when it comes to ministry? I didn't have anyone tell me I couldn't. I mean, I did have some I had these little Baptist elders one time tell me I couldn't, but you know, like other than that, I didn't have this experience of like, women cannot do this. And I think maybe watching my mom be in ministry and raise us with a not so present dad, that helped me. So, but that is a huge encouragement for women. Just because you got married doesn't mean your destiny dies or you have children. And actually, you'd be forfeiting what God has put in you if you don't pay attention to being able to balance that.
I love that. Maya, did you feel any of that pressure when you started, or when you've been doing your business? How did you feel?
Yeah, I think, again, it's one of those to have a husband that understands the calling on your life, right? So from day one, this is what it's been, you know, from the beginning, before we were dating, this is what it's always been. And I think I know I have been blessed to have a husband who supports me with everything. Just the other day, I texted him at work and I said, I'm gone the entire month of June. He said, we're going to figure it out. Right. Like this wasn't, 2 weeks ago, I wasn't leaving, and now I'm gone the entire month visiting clients. And what does that look like? I think the other thing too is to have it all, you have to be able to put things in place to be able to do that. So that means for me having a nanny. Right. Because, that's what also, and I'm able to do those type of things. That also means to be able to have individuals either come and clean for us or whatever that may look like. So when I do have to leave, I do go out and see my clients, there's not this heavy lift. And that time before leaving, I can spend with my children and my family. So being intentional before the leaves, being intentional afterwards. So it's really that whole thought of, again, when, as Dr. Faith says, you're destined for this, you also have to have a strategy and structure in place to be able to continue to move forward.
That's great.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love making sure. And did you feel guilty at all? Because you said I have to have a nanny or having somebody clean. I have a clean. Well, my cleaning lady, she recently quit, so I have
Get a
to
new
find a
one.
new one.
We
But
can talk.
yes, yes,
Get hers. Ask her.
right. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk. But yeah, I do think that's so important. Did you ever feel like guilty about that? How did you deal with, when I say my kids had a different mom once I was staying at home, I had to really kind of deal with some inner guilt that I was carrying. Like, how did how do I make sure that I am present for them? Have you ever had to deal with the guilt? And then what are some of the non-negotiables? So even though I now work full time and then I do Nicole Oliver on the side, my non-negotiables are I have to be in a flexible position to be there for my kids, period. I got to be able to take them to their appointments. I told my job last week, I'm going to London speech, cancel our lunch. I'll be at the school, and no one ever has any issues with that. So I'm curious, what are your non-negotiables? And Favor, I want to start with you because you didn't get to answer in the last one. Now that you have this new husband, this new baby, you're trying to do this, do you have any non-negotiables that you've started to, like, this doesn't come before my husband and child?
Yeah, time. I started coaching clients at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, believe it or not. If some of them are watching, they know it is the absolute truth, right? Because I want to, my husband recently started working and it's hybrid, but he's gone a lot of times during the week. And so the only time we have as a family is when he's back home, because I can see how you're making the money, you guys are meeting goals, but then you guys are losing affection or you're losing the partnership of just spending time together. And so when he comes back home and eats dinner, guess what? When you're older, when you eat, you fall asleep, right? And so we need to spend time together. And so to make sure that my schedule is in such a way that when he's coming home, I don't have anything doing, I start my day at 4:30 a.m. in the morning.
God bless you. Yeah. That's it. God bless you, girl.
Yeah.
That's
Yes. But I love that though, because I think you have to listen. You got to get it in. How you gonna get it in? So it's gonna start. You're gonna do what needs to be done. I love that, Dr. Faith. What are some of your non-negotiables?
Yeah.
Like,
I just wanted to say I love what she said in terms of getting the help that you need, right? If you say you're a boss, mom, don't just be a busy mom, right? To be a boss mom means that you are creating legacy, you are creating wealth. And in order to do that, you have to have those things in place. So I totally agree. I am the same way. Non-negotiables, we create pockets in our family where we just spend time with family. So my family knows that every summer we're going away for 2 weeks. They know every December we go out of the country, like their priorities. And so even the other day we were in the car and I'm like, kids, I just want to check in between pastoring a church and all of this. Do you feel like we're spending enough time with you? They're like, yeah, because I pick them up from school every day. I don't have somebody else do that, right? But that's why I worked so hard early on to be able to do that. Even when we've talked about bringing in nanny, I'm like, okay, they just need to come in. We have what we call a house manager. They come in from 3 to 8, help me clean the dishes, help me fold clothes, all the things we hate doing. But I want to pick up my kids, right? I want to be at the game. So those are some of my non-negotiables. Being here on a weekly basis. I only travel on weekends. I don't travel out on Sundays. I go out Friday and Saturday. But you can get to have that freedom when you start. Let me quickly say this. I feel like a lot of people who are just starting want to have these freedoms and they haven't built the capacity for them. When you first get started, there are a bunch of, sleepless nights. And yes, you may have to go out at a time that you don't want to go out, depending on what your business is. But know that you're working towards something that's coming.
Can I say something what Dr. Faith said? Because all of you guys are way ahead of me in terms of how many years you've been married, how old your kids are, and even like Dr. Faith for how long she's run her business. And I think what she said is key for a lot of people. I cannot do what you guys are doing. Not that I don't want to or I don't need it, is that I'm not in the season for it. I
Right.
cannot afford a babysitter right now. And so I'm keeping Shiloh. And when I have meetings during the day, you better be sleeping with your mouth taped, okay? And so I cannot try to go stress Corey or stress myself to make us start paying for a babysitter that we're going to be able to afford it, but we don't want, that's not a priority right now for where we are as a family, as well as getting a house cleaner. Do I want that? Oh, trust me, every day I wish somebody can put me in Africa because I know I can afford it if I live there, right? I can have 7 of them. You clean my shoes, you clean my house, you clean my kitchen, you cook for me. But in this context, I am not able to get it right now, but I work with what I have and don't put unnecessary stress on myself.
So good.
I love that. You know, and that's why I said I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years because I had these babies. I didn't have a degree and I needed it. I
And
needed
daycare is expensive.
daycare
It
is
is.
expensive and we could not afford that. So there were things that we just had to do and we had to sacrifice it. And one of those things was I was not a rich. I was not, you know, what does it say? The housewives of Winston-Salem. I wasn't one of those. Okay, I wasn't rich. We was out here struggling, but we had to make that sacrifice to make sure that our family was stable. My kid, it's one of the best things that I could have ever did for them, and so I love that I was able to do it. But it was a struggle. So just like you, Favor, you got to do what's in your budget. You got to do what's within your means. And if you want something and you're working for it, I remember having to take my 2 kids to sit outside my professor's classroom because Tim was not home. I'm like, I'm sorry, my kids are here. They don't have babysitting, but I'm coming to class because I need to pass it. So sometimes those are the sacrifices that you have to make. Maya, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I think I'm between Dr. Faith and Favor with this one, right? Like I'm a little bit, you know, but I remember having my kids on stage with me having to do an introduction, right? Like that's it. My kids have to-go bags when I say we have to go to meetings with me. So it's part of that too. And I think it also helps them to understand like what it is that mommy does, right? What it is that I do. How does this work? And part of it, my daughter actually now looks forward to going to some meetings and, you know, she becomes helpful. She wants to take notes. She passing out stickies to everybody, telling them to be happy. So part of this too is the whole thought of having them come in. And I think that's part of the legacy, right? Like they need to understand, and maybe they don't want the business that I have, but also understanding what this looks like right now in this season. The other thing that I focus on too is this summer, I'm taking off August. You know, I've already said that we're taking off the entire month of August. This is what it's going to be. So leading up to that, I am head down. Like I am head down all in during this season, this short couple of months, because August I will be off. August we will be traveling. My daughter just said, we're going to Chicago. We're going, where are we going? You know, what are we doing? Those type of things. So there are, even in these pockets of having the capacity and you've worked for it, there's also the times that you have to be nose down for, even if it's a couple of months, to be able to get it done and to spend that time with your family.
I love that. Now, somebody asked a question, so I want to put it out there. Do you have any advice for single moms that still have to work towards something better? What is the advice any of you guys have for a single mom that maybe is interested in entrepreneurship and getting started, but she's struggling because she doesn't have that support?
Yeah, I mean, the context of her life would really be how we could probably better advise her, right? So do you have 3 kids? Do you have 1 kid? You know, are you working at, you know, in a corporate or a regular job? Are you entrepreneurial? But I always say that you increase your life by increasing your value. And so how you increase your value is extra trainings, extra, you know, certificates or degrees or coaches or mentors. And so I would really just focus on where can I increase my value? If it's late at night at 10 p.m. and I'm watching something online that's going to help me add a skill set to my life, that's what you need to do. And I love what Maya said, that even the same way that even when you are a boss mom or whatever, you're going to have seasons where your head is down. My head has been down all week. That's why I was so late coming on here today. But you focus in for a period. And so as a single mom, I remember my mom driving almost an hour and a half to go get her master's degree every single night and coming back home and working Mary Kay and working with crazy people during the day because she knew that it was for a season. So put your head down for a season and things will shift.
putting your head down for a
For a
season and things
season.
will shift is so wise.
Amen.
It's, I remember, we can talk about it. I got married super young. Tim and I were 20 and 21 years old. Again, my background is kind of wild, churchy, and they're like, the Lord is coming back. And so it's like, oh, this is why you don't go to college. College is worldly, And then suddenly I'm sitting here and I'm poor and I'm uneducated. And I'm like, oh, wait. God ain't came back yet.
And Jesus still not back.
Jesus ain't back. I'm poor and uneducated. I gotta go to school. I gotta do something better for my life. And so I think as a single mom, depending on where you are in your life and in your career, what I knew at the time in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, minimum wage was $9. And I really needed more than that. I don't even think it wasn't $9.
It's $7.15.
Yeah, it was $7.15, but good pay was $9, and it's like that still wasn't enough for me. And so it was like putting my head down and saying, you know what, I got to go to school, come hell or high water, no matter what. I went to school, and then in that I discovered at first I went to school for like paralegal. I was in paralegal school, and it was going to school I realized I don't want to be nobody's paralegal. I actually that's not who I am. But initially, I was just like, listen, I don't care if this degree is in ice cream technology. I just know I got to get this paper. Like, I just knew I had to do it. And so it's like, as a single mother, if you know it, and one thing that I guess we don't talk about enough is that Black women in this country are the highest educated group in this country, but still the most disparaged group. And so it's like, guys, getting our paper is just getting us in the door somewhere. And so it's like, I know everybody's like, college is not for everybody. I get it. But for us,
you got to do something.
You got to do something. And so it's like, if you are single and you have kids and you're trying to better your degree, I am a proponent for you bettering your education. And for you to get there. I make more money than some of my friends right now. And I'm not saying I'm not out here balling. I'm trying to get, I'm moving ahead, okay? But I make more money or the same amount of some of my friends have been working 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Just because I went
and educated.
And that's what I did. And so I just think it's important to remember starting somewhere, having a vision for what you want to be. And I still have a little bit of a salary cap for what I want. But yeah, single mamas, you can do it. Maya, you look like you was going to say something.
No, I echo. I think one of the things too, even if it's the whole thought of I don't have the money or I don't want to get into debt, because I'm still believing that the Lord is going to cancel all of this, all the loans. That's between the United States and Jesus right about now on my loans. But there are so many free programs, and I think one of the things too is we have to be able to spend some time researching, doing all of those things, whether you're single or you're not single in this season. And I do believe God will give you grace and meet you where you are. But I think this is what you have to be able to do, even if it's like Dr. Faye said, if you have to be up late at night getting this degree or favor, you 4:30 in the morning, you need to do a favor season where you up and getting it done. But I think that's the biggest thing. One of the things that comes easy is making money. One of the things that doesn't come easy for people is using their time well.
That's good. That's good. Okay. That's so good.
I think that people also wait for permission a lot. I love what Dr. Faye said, that she did a lot of things because nobody was allowed to tell her don't do it, right? And so people wait for permission. I think your permission is your lack. If you lack, you have permission. If you lack something that your life is in need of, that's enough permission to go get it.
You said if you lack, you have permission. Somebody need to write that down. That is good.
Your lack is your permission.
Yes, your lack is your permission. And I love that. Oh, man, I love that. Ladies, tell me some of the best parts about being an entrepreneur.
Besides the money, I think the freedom, I always tell people, if you have time, then you should be making money. And if you have money, you probably don't have a lot of time, right? So I think that the freedom to be able to choose how, I love this. I took one class with this Google executive because I was like, let me get around other, professionals. I've been an entrepreneur by myself. And so she's there. And one of the classes was how to ask for a raise. And she's teaching these, different corporate folks how to ask for a raise. I'm like, I don't ever have to ask for a raise. I make my raise, right? And so I didn't even know how to do that homework assignment because she's like, this is how you go about it. But I love that you get to say, next year, I want to make this much. And these are the goals. And sometimes you hit them and sometimes you don't, but you don't have a cap on what you can create and how far you can go. And then the freedom.
I love that. Maya?
Yeah, I love my easy mornings. I put my kids on the bus, I take them off. Yesterday, I pulled them out of school early so we could go to a festival. I tend not to work Mondays and Fridays. Those are my days of preparation and stuff, but I don't take meetings on those days because when do you actually get the work done? But I enjoy being able to have that freedom. I think we all talked about we're going to take our kids to the doctors. We're going to show up, all of those type of things.
Yeah.
But the early, the easy mornings where, my daughter is saying, can you take me to Tim Hortons for the breakfast? Yes. I truly do enjoy that. I also enjoy learning from other entrepreneurs. One of the great things about being in this space is I don't have to always create something new. I can pivot and say, I've learned this from Dr. Faith. I've learned this from Favor. I've learned this from Pastor Jen, and make it my own and what it needs to be while giving credit where credit's due.
That's great. I would say flexibility and impact, right? So the flexibility, like we've all said, because now my husband works out of home, we have mission trip coming up and we have to be like, does that fit your schedule? I hate it. I don't like that. And thank God, even when I had a job, that was something that my company allowed me to do because I worked for a ministry. And also the impact. Dr. Faith said, sometimes you set a goal on what you want to make. You may not make that goal, but you made an impact, right? So we don't want to make an income at the expense of impact.
Yeah.
I love that too.
Yeah.
You don't want to make say that again.
You don't want to make an income at the expense of impact. I believe that people who are truly making an impact have income.
Yep.
Yes.
Who are truly making an impact have income. So for me, waking up every day, I coach even like celebrity actresses from South Africa. So when somebody DM me and say, I got the role because I remember what you said, that my heritage is favor, not my skin color. And I went in there expecting favor and I got accepted for something that 5 years ago I have been denied over and over and over. Let me tell you, when I look at my bank account, it can never reflect that kind of, it's way beyond that.
Come on, that's so good. That is so good. I love that. So I'm also curious, how do you guys, well, wait, before I ask that question, what are some things that you would tell a mom who wants to start a business but wants to make sure she's keeping her family first? What are some of the things that you would tell her? Maya, you start.
You need to pray, right? I think part of this and what happens is again, is this the season you're supposed to be in? So I'm really heavy, on really understanding seasons in my life and making sure this isn't my first go round with entrepreneurship and I was out of season. So part of this too is if the Lord is preparing, you may be in this whole moment where you're just preparing for that mantle to be able to do those type of things. But how do you prepare is also going to set you up to be able to sustain long term. Right. So and I think sometimes we forget that even if you have a business on the side while you're still working that 9 to 5, you're getting there. So it doesn't have to be like, I quit my job today and I'm going to step out and do this. Again, what is God telling you to do? If you have a spouse or a partner, whatever, a husband, talk to them, make sure that you are aligned. When I left, we need to make sure we still had insurance, right? Like those type of things, because these, kids got to go to the doctor. Those things. So there's some things, and that's why I always say structure follows strategy. And again, if your strategy doesn't include prayer and just the whole fasting and all of those things, you are out of line. And this is when people get frustrated and say, I didn't have the support, this didn't go this way. And they become angry, not just with themselves, but with God. But was that your season?
Come on. Structure follows strategy. I love that. That needs to go on a shirt too. That's a good one. Now, I am not I have Nicole Oliver Wellness is something I do on the side. So I love that. I keep a pretty busy clientele. I don't talk about it, but it's only because I need the stability of a day job. And so I'm not super my entrepreneurial, my husband is a chronic entrepreneur, and so I'm like, babe, you
Now you got to have one that has that steady
Yeah.
pace. You got to.
That consistent person.
Yeah.
I don't have it in me just yet, but I got some goals, and so it's like, okay, we're going to get there. So I do think as a mom who's maybe trying to start out, realizing what your real capacity is. If you're a mom, depending on what the family income looks like, you might not be able to rush out and start your business. You might need the stability of having a job and then doing what you love on the side to build into it. So I think that's important. Dr. Faith, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. When I started my business, my husband was doing his master's degree, and I was like, "We can do business. Let's just do it." He's like, "No, one of us has to have a steady income, right?"
Yes.
And so that's the blessing of being married. And I understand that some people may not be married, but you want to think that out, because people always ask, like, how do I know when to quit my job? I say one or two ways, right? Either you have built up at least 6 months of savings and you have your emergency fund, and generally it's just you and maybe one kid, and you can float it, right? If you're single, you can live in your car or eat cereal, but you can't make that decision, right? If you have children. And so you want to weigh all those things, insurance and, just the basics. But I think the way you had asked the question, do you remember how you asked it?
What are some things that you would tell a mom who wants to start a business but wants to keep her family first?
Okay, so keeping starting the business is how you're going to keep your family first. So you need to remember that if I can get this going, put my head down for 6 months and establish a rhythm, then I'll be able to keep my family first for the long run.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And keeping a rhythm. And then, like, I think, how do you make sure too? And it could be just me, right? So we'll say it's a me thing, but I was raised to, like, your husband, whatever he's doing is really more important than what you're doing. And so, and he has blessed me so much by not treating me like that. But that's just how ministry treated me, right? They're like, I have been told to my face, like, what Tim got going on is more important than what you have going on, And so how do you combat, or how do you come out of those type of mindsets? It's been kind of probably years of just trying to process out, like, hey, Jen, you do matter. What you're thinking matters, and that your husband will be fine, But we also live in a society where I feel like women are made to feel like we can't outshine our men. And so how do you guys deal with that? Dr. Faith, how do you deal with that? In ministry, you've been in a space where, like, you're the head pastor almost. He's come alongside you, but how do you deal with any of the backlash or any of the feelings that you might get from that?
Yeah. So when I met my husband, because every guy that I met before him would say, well, whoever marries you, they're going to be intimidated by you, right? So I had to, like, get over that, because I was like, the reason they're intimidated is because they don't want to rise up to the occasion. But the first thing my husband said to me when he met me was, I bet most men are intimidated by you, but I'm not. So I already knew at that point that he was very confident in his identity. He was very confident in his purpose. And so for us, it's never been a competition. My husband didn't ever want a pastor. He's like, you can be a pastor. Like, I'm a businessman. Like, I'm going to, develop nations. That's what he's passionate about. So it's always just been, and I've been fortunate. I hear your experience. I've heard other women talk about it. But we just know our roles. We do what we call strength-based leadership, strength-based marriage. And now he's in a season where he's developing someone. And I love being in the background. I love being able to push him. I love being able to push his agenda. Being in the South, when we planted the church, every time we would go somewhere, people would say, oh, you're the first lady. I'm like, I'm like, there's never been a day. I don't even know what a first lady does. Right.
Exactly.
But I'll just be like, okay, because that doesn't diminish me. Right. If they want to see him as the pastor, like, he is the lead pastor, and we made that very clear, but we co-pastored together. And so if I get to help him shine, I'm his crown, and I don't have any problem with that. And he has no problem with pushing me forward as well. So we're really fortunate.
That's great.
That's good.
That is so good. Maya, you got anything to add?
No, I didn't grow up in the church like you did, Pastor Jen. So I'm sorry that you went through that. But I do think that we still align with what the Bible says, right? So regardless of what a season may look like, Jeremy is my armor bearer with in any and everything that I'm doing, right? He's covering me, he's protecting me. And while he may not always be the forefront or, those type of things, he's the armor bearer. He is still guiding this home. And if he says you are moving too fast, I will follow and I will slow down. And because clearly the Lord has told him, we need to pivot. You need to slow down. There's some things that are going on. Just like I said earlier, when my schedule changed and I said I got to be out the entire month of June, he said, we can do this, right? So I didn't make that decision on my own. I made that decision with him and my children and mine as well. But I'm definitely still very much, I know who God has called me to be, but I also know who the head of the house is, and I can honor both. I can honor the season I'm in while honoring my husband.
I think that is so good, and because church will put us in a space, but even in worldliness, people try to make you not want to honor your husband. And so I think that I love that you said that. I can do both. I can honor my husband. He can support me. We can line up together. And I just love how you put that together. So that was really good. Yeah. Favor, where you at? Because I know you're new in it. So
I was similar to Dr. Faith. People used to tell me you're so intimidating. Because to be honest, everything I'm doing now, I was doing before, right? It, like Dr. Faith said, you amplify and you should even succeed more when you're married, because now you have help. You have somebody that you can share the bullets with when people throw bullets at you for doing what you're called to do. And so Corey had told me from day one, he said, I could tell people are intimidated by you, but I'm not intimidated. In fact, he said that he felt like he came into knowing his purpose when he met me, because his purpose is to serve me into my purpose.
That's good.
And so I didn't have to turn anything down. And that makes you easy for you to submit. Like, why would you submit to a man like that, right? He set up this whole thing. Some other person will be like, oh, I have a meeting too, and you have to take care of the baby. And sometimes Shiloh prefers this side of the world than the other side. And so, but he doesn't allow. But I also think that people have to learn not to take advice from people who don't have results.
Come on.
Right?
That part.
Don't take advice from people who don't have results, period. When Corey and I started talking, we went to Dr. Faye. Like, he went to Dr. Faye, not even knowing Dr. Faye knew who I was, right?
Oh, wow.
But that's because there's result. She has result. I cannot go to people who are miserable in their marriages to tell me honor my husband in a certain way, because how has that been working for you?
How has that been working for you?
If you are unhappy, you cannot give me advice on how to be happy.
Amen.
So I'm very result based.
and even really learning how to take advice from people who don't take advice from people who are not happily married. Like, come on, don't take relationship advice from people who don't take entrepreneurship advice from people that don't have a running business, right? So it's the same. Don't take marriage advice from people who are not happily married. Don't take business advice from people who don't have a good business model. So that is so good. And y'all, look, I'm on my son's computer this morning, so now he's getting phone calls. It's messing me. It's trying to mess me up over here.
That's life.
It's mom chat, right? That's life. Yeah. That is so good. And then I want to know, how have you dealt with, because we kind of talked about some of this already, but do you ever feel like people have tried to make you choose one or the other? And how have you kind of dealt with that? Have you ever felt like people tried to make you choose between your family and your career? And what are some of the things that you would say, Dr. Faye?
Well, I had some interesting things when it comes to pastoring a church as well. You know, I've had people say, like, you're more interested in your business than in the church members, right? Like, but you don't realize that you, first of all, don't even give. Second of all, I don't even get paid by the church, right? Like, the ones who are always complaining are the ones who you're not even contributing to the church. And you think that I'm making a living from the church, which I'm not. But it's the reason why we've been able to freely pastor and freely give of our time and not have long offering lines is because we've been able to be bivocational. And so that's been really big. I think early on when I first started my business with the doctorate in clinical psychology, especially my husband coming from Nigeria, where everyone's like a lawyer, engineer, or a doctor, and even my mom, who's also African, right? Like they were like, so you're not gonna be a therapist like anybody else? Like, so you have these $100,000 loans and you're not gonna work in a hospital? You know, like, what is this? When I started out in 2009, online entrepreneurship was teleseminars, right? And so I had to convince my family that this is the way to go, right? And that I'm not going to neglect my family. I'm not going to neglect my children. If you could just hang on with me. And it's been a good ride, since. But it was more so not necessarily choosing between my family and the business, but other things that come with being a servant leader as well as an entrepreneur.
Oh, I love that. Maya, you feel like people ever try to make you choose?
I think I made me choose at one point, right? When you're a new mom, you don't know what you're doing, I think I felt like I had to choose. And I too learned that I am not equipped to be a stay-at-home mom, right? Every time I did it, I was like, I think this not working out for none of us. Nobody's happy. So, but I think it's that mindset of, again, what are we called to be? There's this thought, and we always see it around Mother's Day of, this super mom syndrome, right? And I gave that to God years ago. Like I can't be, I can't be super and my God be super. So I think what I had to do was move out of my own way, and say that I can be a phenomenal mom. I'm going to make mistakes. And one of the things I learned from Lisa Turkis is bad moments don't make bad mamas.
Come on.
And when I gave myself that grace to be able to say, I can do both, and I can, with some support, with some help from family and other things, that I can do this, I was able to then walk into this season that I'm in now. And even, prior, with my head held high, with the support of my family, with my kids saying, we are proud of you, and all of these things. And what I've learned is it doesn't have to work for everybody else, but this is what works for the Cranes.
Yes.
And as long as it's working for the Cranes, nobody else, their opinion of it outside of Christ doesn't really matter.
That's good.
I love that.
That's so good.
Yeah. Go ahead, Favor. What you gonna say?
I think it's, and we said this before, asking your spouse for support. I think for me, the way that, because of how strong my personality is, I could just go do it and then you see the results. But it's intentionally making sure I'm not picking one or the other, is making them a part of the business. They are the business first, right? Your family is the business. It's your first business. And so not just saying this is what I want to do, but also asking for help from Corey, so that at least he knows what my expectations are. Because sometimes we find ourselves either listening to what people are saying or trying to understand how to pick and choose, because it involves people that you're not involving them in the process. So Corey is very involved. He may not be the one doing the coaching, but he knows exactly how I want to be supported. And if he's not able to, he tells me, we talk about it. So I think it's getting your family involved. And like she said, if it's working for the Robinsons, it doesn't have to work for the WOKOMAs, right? It doesn't have to work for the Cranes. So not comparing with other people.
No,
I think that's another thing, is the comparison, where you're like, but look at Dr. Faith and Pastor So they're on there, and and your husband is looking at you like, okay, when you're done dreaming, come, let's have a real conversation.
Yes. Yes. Listen, I think that's so important. You got to throw comparison out the window. The way I started is not the way you started. The way my life was going is not the way your life is going. And if I try to compare where I'm at to where you are, and I don't look at all the other things, it's like comparison, you got to kill it.
Yeah.
You cannot compare. You just got to kill it. So I'm so with that. But then I'm curious, you two ladies, Dr. Faith and Favor, do you feel like, so this is an off the cuff question. Do you feel like culturally it is different here for women mindsets than in Africa? And how have you been able to like come alongside, help, or speak life into some of those areas? What are some things that you would tell? Like, what are some things that you notice? I'm curious, Dr. Faith.
Yeah.
Some of the cultural differences.
Yeah. So I had made an inner vow before I met my husband that I would never marry an African. And it was only when I broke that, and that was based off of wounds with my natural fathers, right? That I actually met my husband. But part of it was, I'm not a traditional woman. I am not going to be stuck in a box, and you're not going to do that. Well, I married into the right nation, because Nigerians are some of the most ambitious. Their women are the most thriving, top billionaire women. So when he met me, for us, that's what attracted him to me, right? My drive and my ambition. But honey, we had to talk about roles, and luckily I believe in traditional roles, and he also believes in traditional roles. So I love all things house, decorating, cooking, and all of that stuff, and he takes care of everything else. But it could be reversed in other scenarios where they're like, you're just gonna stay home and you are gonna cook and you are gonna take care of the kids and not have that support. So I think it's like kind of a case by case.
Okay.
But Africa in general, I think, is evolving a lot.
Out of.
And so most men that are educated also want someone who is building, who is pioneering, who is creating. But I was a little nervous at first when I met him on that day. Like, what are you gonna say, right?
Yeah.
But for us, I have seen a really good balance, and I've seen in most couples that they both work, they both come together and build forward. So
I love that. Favor.
That's
What have
good.
you noticed?
Yeah, I'm African, obviously. Corey's African American, and he's funny when you said it, I laughed because somebody told him that men don't change diapers in Africa. I'm like, but you changing them?
You changing them.
We're in America, boo. Yeah. Yeah.
Like literally this morning, he was like, I was like, please take your daughter. You need to change. He was like, oh, somebody told me men don't change diapers in Africa, and this is my last day. I'm like, you're just getting started because
This is America.
This is not just America. This is our home. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that's important. Like, this is our house. Yeah. What is gonna work? Because there are good aspects of our culture that I don't throw away. I love to cook. Like Dr. Faye said, I love to cook. It's almost like therapeutic for me when I cook. But I married a man who is not typical of like, if we don't cook. Since Shiloh turned 1, I haven't cooked because we had food, and I have not touched the stove to cook anything but to heat it up or whatever the case is. But now there's some men who would not eat leftovers. There are people I know who cook every day with dessert and appetizers. It's not me.
Not dessert and appetizer.
Yeah, I think it's having a conversation. It's true, having a conversation, because it's such a pressure and unhealthy expectation. It's not real, right? It's some days Corey comes and I'm like, yeah, take your daughter. I'm tired. I'm gonna go take a walk in the park, because I wanted to cook, but she didn't give me the chance to. It just didn't happen. And so it's a conversation you must have.
Yes.
And I think it's super important that culture, the part of culture that is good can influence your decisions, but the part that's not going to work for your last name should not make a way into your home.
Come on. That's good stuff. That's so good. And I loved talking to all you ladies today, because this has been really phenomenal. I'm so thankful that you guys took the time to just come. And I wanted to say too, to anybody that's listening, if you want to start a business, get a strategy, get a plan, make sure that you actually have it in your budget to be able to do some of the things that you're saying you want to do, and don't quit your job too soon. And make sure that if it's in your mind to want to make sure you keep your family first, you want to keep that in the forefront of what you're doing. You know, and you want to have good conversations with your family. You want to let them know some of the things that you have planned or going on. Our family does end of year family assessments so that everybody can be at the forefront of what's going on, period. Me and Dad are trying to build this. Here are some things that we want to work on. Here are some things that are good, bad, or, we talk about that. And then my kids are allowed to call a family meeting anytime. What do we need to talk about? What are some things that we really need to be able to process through? And when I was in school, we had to talk about it. Dad had to step into some things, he had to step up into areas that I was traditionally doing, and even now working full time, it's the same way. So I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to have the communication with my spouse and with my family. And I think all moms, you need to be able to do that, single or married, having the proper communication so that you can actually build.
That's good.
Yeah. So thank you guys. This has been great. You guys did good. Dr. Faith, me and Maya was out here fangirling a little bit.
Good to meet you. I've
been keeping it together the whole time. Okay.
Oh my goodness. I would love to hear what you do. I was like, that sounds so interesting. So you traveled to you can tell me later. I don't know if we have a time crunch yet.
And then Dr. Faith, tell us a little bit more about DTA.
Yeah. Yeah. So DTA is just our mentorship program. Obviously, I can't mentor people one-on-one. So we developed a 7-step system where we take people through foundational developments. And then after that, they go through electives in different areas of life. And it's just allowed us to help women heal, step into their purpose and their identity.
All right. Maya, tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so I'm a strategic thought partner as well as a virtual chief of staff. So many times I'll come in and a person or an organization will say, I need support with this. So I'm working with a large indigenous community right now and really helping them be able to move their culture as well as understanding what's going on in the 21st century forward. I'm also very much one of those who just wants to be able to support and again, help people make sure that they're aligned with their purpose once they find it, like making sure you're not mission drift or purpose drifting from what they're trying to do, either an organization or an individual.
Favor, tell us about yours.
So I am a life coach, specifically transformational life coach. So I show people how to shift their perspective and take actions that change their lives in a way that change the world, right? Because you cannot change the world without changing your life. So I'm all about raising champions for transformational impact.
I love this. Look, so thank you guys for taking your mornings out with me. Thank you for coming a little bit earlier. This was so good. Now my husband is getting ready to do his live with ATV. So we switched times today. To
Thank you for switching them.
Yes, look, we love it. We're here for it. Y'all all have a good morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Bye,
Good talking
everyone.
with you, ladies. Have a great day.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.